The very nature of Chinese civilization has its roots firmly running through this man, his life, and this book. Shang Yang is a titan of world history worthy of far more attention than he gets, and might be the most significant figure in history you have never heard of. Born in 390 BC during the Warring States period, surnamed Gong Sun, given name Yang, in the State of Wei, one of the many warring states of that period. Two sites are candidates for his birthplace: Anyang City in Neihuang County and Puyang City. He would be known to posterity as Shang Yang for his success in reforming the neighbouring state of Qin in a type of reform known in English as legalism, in Chinese Xianyang Bianfa. Later legalists like Han Fei would credit him as being the first of their kind. Unfortunately, the English word misses half the point. The Chinese name is Fa Jia, and it includes Fa with the meaning of method but also law, Jia just meaning school of thought, as all Chinese schools of thought are known. For example, Rujia, Confucianism. This Fa Jia, or legalism, is encapsulated in the Book of Lord Shang, and it became intertwined with the eventual success of this state in unifying the warring states and the characteristics of the subsequent order under the Han Dynasty. It goes without saying the significance of this. Sima Qian records his life in around 90 BC, 300 years later, in chapter 68 of the Records of the Grand Historian. From his early age, Shang Yang was taught about the importance of written law by people like Shi Jiao, as well as reformers Li Kui and Wu Qi, who advocated for the strengthening of central government and the military. This comes in a time of decline for the Zhou in the Warring States period and a period of turmoil. In 365 BC, at the age of 25, he became a retainer to Gong Shu Cuo, a Chen Xiang, an advisor to the Wei Emperor Qin Hui. Gong Shu Cuo was impressed by Shang Yang and recommended him to Qin Hui. Unfortunately, in the long term for the king, he refused this recommendation, and Shang Yang would go unused, despite the warnings of his advisor to use him or kill him before letting him go. In 361, Shang Yang answered the call of the neighbouring state's Duke Xiao, Qin Xiaogong, for talented people of all the kingdoms to come and help him reform his state. Shang Yang leaves the state of Wei in 361 and arrives in the state of Qin. It is worth noting that talented people often moved around the states to find worthy patrons for their political visions. Confucius had done the same thing 300 years before in around 500 BC. The peoples of the various states behind the walls considered themselves to be one people of different kingdoms, particularly in opposition to the Yi, horse nomadic peoples north of the walls and the Yellow River. Qin was the furthest west of all the states and in some ways detached from the turmoil of the central states. Shang Yang noted the potential, and his ideas of making the state strong, Changguo Zhishu, appealed to King Shao. In 365, the first reforms were applied. As in the book eventually attributed to Shang Yang, that is the Book of Lord Shang, the main focus of these reforms was twofold: to get people to farm more and soldier more. This was a pressing existential concern of any sensible statesman during this period. To do this, the laws would assign land to soldiers based upon their success in war, stripping nobility of their prestige who are unwilling to fight for it, and also sidelined merchantry by ensuring all business was to go through the state. Rewards and punishments is a repeated mantra throughout the book, and whilst there were indeed harsh punishments, rewards were generous as well. For example, surpassing the usual quota of grain and textile was rewarded. With regards to the enforcement of criminal law, the population was to experience harsh punishments regardless of their standing. One of the extremities of this was the system of collective liability, in which the whole population was grouped into 10 with the aim of mutual supervision and informing of wrongdoing. Shang Yang's penal law was infamous for inflicting severe punishment even for minor crimes, that is, to punish minor crimes heavily to prevent bigger ones. It would be purely propagandistic to ignore the realities of these reforms. Many modern audiences would shy away from these measures, the topic of which is delved into in the TV series Qin Empire Alliance 2006, in which the Prince Chen himself has his nose cut off for not following the laws. In 350 BC, Shang Yang introduced his second set of changes, which included a new standardized system of land allocation and reforms to taxation. Qin Zui Zhongfa. Shang Yang's reforms were a response to a particular set of problems, namely centuries-long fragmentation and war. All the people of the differing states agreed to their shared kinship, the varying petty kingdoms warring against each other, with the losses of, at times, hundreds of thousands of men, even perhaps to some estimate millions, in war must have seemed like the very definition of madness. For example, at the Battle of Champing, Lord Shang argued that the power of the army of Qin and its economic prosperity might eventually make it master over the other regional states. The extremities of what he did must also be balanced off with the undoubtable upside. In a world of low birth rates and seemingly dying civilizations, the fact that Shang Yang enacted laws encouraging citizens to marry at a young age and passed tax laws to encourage raising multiple children seems like a breath of fresh air. I haven't even mentioned the fact that he created modern-day Xi'an and the ancient capital of Shenyang. This decision would have far-reaching consequences. From the Han Dynasty, that is China's Rome, covering a similar time period, until the Tang nearly 1,100 years later, it would be the centre of Chinese civilization. The monuments to Qin order, echoing Shanyang, would be built there with hundreds of thousands of people involved in the building of the terracotta warriors. Furthermore, in a world of preferential treatment for this group or the other, it is admirable of Shang Yang to even aim for the ideal of meritocracy in such a time, an ideal he would live and eventually die for. In 341 BC, Shang Yang himself led an army into the neighbouring state of Wei, the one he had come from, and took back land to the west of the Yellow River that the Qin had previously lost. In 338 BC, his advocate, Duke Xiao, Qin Xiaogong, passed away. King Huiwen, who under Shang Yang's own law was the boy whose tutor, Prince Chen, had been punished, returns, now a grown man. With this returning new prince in the ascendant, and Shang Yang lacking his ally, Duke Xiaogong, the nobles who had lost some of their positions also had axes to grind. It is not certain as to what pretext the nobles and King Huiwen exacted revenge. The only thing we know for certain is that the laws were not changed. Shang Yang himself was subjected to a particularly spiteful and grotesque way of execution, Zhu Lie, of being fastened to 5 chariots and being torn into pieces. Yet another great historical figure from history who had brought a new law and had to die for it. With the now highly motivated army and meritocratic state behind them, other legalist leaders like Han Fei and Li Se would continue applying the laws until 221 BC, when the states were unified under Qin Shi Huang. This brought an end to the centuries-long period of warring states within only a few generations. From here, the previous reforms were applied to all the states, weights and measures standardized, and most importantly, in a civilization of the written word, the Chinese script is standardized. However, different times heralded different problems, and the Qin state was set up to conquer and expand. With nowhere left to expand, it tore itself apart with poor leadership. The regime encapsulated by the corrupt eunuch Zhao Gao was far from meritocratic. The subsequent Han Dynasty, though founded by Liu Bang, would carry on legalist traditions in rewards and punishments. For such a significant man of history to leave such a legacy, it is strange that he's so little known. Whether it's because of the mixture of reforms he enacted which don't fit into any number of our modern paradigms, or the fact that he was pro-natalist whilst also being pro-shared punishments, means that Shang Yang has sat on the shelf of history with so few people taking his works off the shelf for a read. It is high time to rediscover Shang Yang, the reformer, the legalist, the first meritocrat.
我就是左庶长未央，开府总领国政。以往，国府号令多有反复，民众不信官府，秦国的事就办不好。 从今